Hi everyone, Mike here. Hopefully you're having an amazing day. And this is all about how to be confident, how to feel confident enough to go bigger. So we're not just talking motivational quotes and that's it. We're not just talking 3 or 4 selfies a week. We are talking things like having your own podcast, having your own show, doing videos like this one, seminars, webinars, speaking on stage, whatever it happens to be. We're talking the bigger energy actions. How can you feel confident enough to do those things? We're going to run through a couple of ideas, a couple of thoughts, a couple of things to get you started, but then we're going to dive in. We're going to go deeper into the real reason why you struggle with this, the real reason why you can't seem to wrap your head around going bigger and feeling confident enough to go bigger. All right, so that is what this video is all about. One of the things that I'm going to mention straight away is if it's your first time doing it, your first time putting yourself out there in that way, in a bigger way, it's because it's unknown. It could be the first time you've done it, brand new. It's unknown. So there is an element of you're not going to know the outcome. You're not going to know what will happen. But in order to do that, it's not about confidence in the situation because you've never been there before. You've never been in those situations. You have never done those things before. So you can't have the same level of confidence. You can't have the situational confidence because it's new. So that is something that I want to mention straight away, is there are 2 main forms of confidence. You've got in the situation, as I mentioned, but you've also got like a level of trust in yourself, level of belief and faith in yourself. And that's what you've got to develop first. You've got to develop that trust in yourself, trust in your own abilities, your own sort of self-esteem, if you will, you know, your own estimations of yourself. If you've low self-esteem, you tend to struggle with the self-trust element. If you have a higher level of self-esteem, higher level of belief, and just feel good in your own skin, chances are the trust side will be easier to develop and will be much, much higher. So things like building your own self-esteem is very important. Things like self-care, how you dress, how you come across, you know, how you look after yourself. Most people look after themselves because they want to, because they feel good, because it helps them feel more confident in themselves when they do it. It's not about being confident first. It's about doing whatever it takes to feel confident, and then it builds, and then it grows from there. I hope that makes sense. Now, when that happens, when you start to have the higher self-esteem, the higher level of self-trust, it's the whole like mockingbird element. I think that's the name of the bird, the one where its wings flap quite quickly. I can't remember which one it was, but basically it trusts in itself. It has a lot of faith in its own wings. So it can land on weak branches. It can land on the very tip of the branches, the weakest part. It's not because it has a lot of faith in the tree or a lot of faith in the branches. It's because it has a lot of faith and belief and trust in itself. That is where it comes from. That is where the whole idea and metaphor comes from, is it's more about you than it is about everything around you. I hope that makes sense. Then you've got to figure out, okay, well, this is going to be my first time. This will be unknown territory. Never done this before. Faith in myself, belief in myself, trust in myself. That is the best thing that I could possibly hope for. The amount of people that do things for the first time and still manage to carry them off, yes, they may have developed some skills over time that may have helped them. right? They may have developed like speaking on video before speaking on stage. Maybe they've interviewed people online. Maybe they've been interviewed before. So if they are interviewed on, say, TV or radio, or they've got those opportunities lined up for them, they've got an element of skill built in. They've been doing some of the reps, if you will, before they start to do the bigger elements. And that's okay. But unknown is still unknown. From experience, no amount of videos prepared me for speaking on stage. It was still freaking me out. It was still a struggle, still a hardship. So while you can develop the skills, being in the stressful situations doesn't change the fact that it's still a stressful situation. It's still going to be difficult. And sometimes you've got to acknowledge that. You've got to realize, hey, the first time I do something, it's going to be the worst time. The first time I do this is probably not going to be my best. But that doesn't mean I can't do my best. That doesn't mean I can't try. That doesn't mean I can't do whatever it takes to be able to do my best, be my best, and let the dice land where they may. That is one of the things that you've got to wrap your head around, if you will, is that, yeah, it's always going to be your worst because you'll get better over time. But that doesn't mean you go in without preparing. That doesn't mean you become reckless. That doesn't mean you can go in and just wing it and hope for the best. Doesn't always work. Doesn't always work that way. Now, when I do things for the first time, I'm a bag of nerves. My anxiety goes through the roof. I struggle. I really, really do struggle to manage it. But when you get comments like, I didn't realize you were nervous, you didn't come across as nervous, it makes me feel a bit better in that there's a difference between what goes on inside your head and what you can show. There's a veil or a wall or a block between what runs through your mind, could be freaking out, but you've got the composure to still deliver. That's why athletes are still nervous. That's why public speakers are still nervous. That's why people that do interviews and they do all kinds of things, they still get nervous. It's just inside their head, and they just realize that they're a professional. They take this seriously. They have to do a good job. They've got to try their best. They've got to be their best, and that's the best they can do. But if you're afraid to do it wrong, if you're wanting it to be perfect straight away, if you spend too long worrying about what people think, you won't actually get there. It took years for anyone to get good. And I know we're in a world where we're seen more, we are more public. Some of it is in part because you post more. So if you show up more, you post more, you're automatically going to be seen more. That's just the nature of the beast. Being online, being a business owner, change maker, whatever you want to call yourself, and that you're online posting more, you're going to be seen more. That is just with the territory. It's like there's no point in wanting to skydive, but you're afraid of heights. It's like, well, you know, there's an inherent sense of if you're going to jump off a plane, you've got to get in the plane and get up. If you want to be seen online, you want to show up bigger, you have to keep showing up consistently. That's part of the game. It's part of the rules of the road, if you will. All right. Well, there's no right or wrong with it. You know, so I do some videos like this one, but it's a bit more polished. I do some videos when I'm out for a walk. I do some videos when I'm just chatting, random Q&As. Some of it's structured, some of it's not. Some of it's random, some of it's not. And that's just the way it is. Wrong or right doesn't come into it. You know, people swear, people don't, people do whatever it is, but it's their way. So there's an element of finding your way. Perfect doesn't exist. Doing your best does exist. Being your best you is more effective, more efficient, and there's no such thing as doing it wrong. Now, there's the difference between wanting all the lights to be perfect and wanting the sound to be perfect and all those things. That's a different ballgame to the words that come out of your mouth, the things that you do, the things that you say. Now, the better you know your topic and the clearer that you are and the more concise you are with how you come across, yes, you can come across as more confident. Yes, you can come across as more of an authority, I suppose, because you're able to focus your intentions, focus your content, and get the point across. That's about the skill of it, though. That comes with repetition, that comes with planning, that comes with preparing, that comes with knowing your topic inside and out and get into the meat of it. But if all of that still happens, if you do all of those things, but you're so fixated on worrying whether people will like it, worrying whether you're good enough, worrying whether everyone will hate it, because that's the worst thing. There's nothing worse than being focused, being niched, being an authority on a particular area, and when you put yourself out there, everyone in that niche, everyone in that area doesn't like it. Because then you feel like you've wasted your time, you feel like you've wasted your energy, you've wasted all the work that you've done behind the scenes, trying to be focused, trying to be a specialist, trying to do all those things for it not to work. So I get that. I've had that. My clients have had that. But one of the things that really stands out, one of the things that really stretches you and pushes the envelope is going back to the people that you follow, whether it be me or somebody else, and go back to their first lot of content. So don't compare my 1,000th piece of content, my 1,000th interview, with your first one. Compare my first one with your first one. Then you start to see, maybe you spent too long thinking about it, too long planning, preparing, organizing, talking yourself into it, talking yourself out of it before you pull the trigger and before you actually start to do this thing. Because you realize that, hey, Mike started and he wasn't as amazing as what he is now, but I feel like I want to be better than his first one. What place did he put himself into whereby he felt okay putting himself out there in that way, even though it wasn't as good as what it is now? Repetition is the mother of skill. Repetition is the thing that will improve you. Repetition, planning something, doing something, then reviewing it, seeing if, how you can improve it, what you can do about it, maybe listening to yourself back so you realize, hey, I've got mannerisms I don't like. I say things too often that I don't like. And then you start to adjust just through self-awareness, just through being aware of how you show up, how you come across, can be enough to get the ball rolling on your improvement, right? Because every 5 or 10 videos I go, hey, I've done things a bit different there. I've shown up differently. I wasn't so much of a robot, right? And it can happen. But if you've got nothing to pull from, if you've got no content to look back over, if you've got no sense of repetition, no sense of habit, no sense of skill, you've got nothing to go on and you're basing it off things that you say, things that people have told you. And that's a dangerous place to be because no one knows you better than you. And if you take other people's voices, make them your own, you're never going to fire the gun. You're never going to get this going. You're never going to start. Because someone somewhere told you something negatively about you and you've made it as your voice inside your head. And that is one of the biggest reasons why you struggle. That's one of the biggest reasons why you can't pull the trigger on something brand new. You don't want it to fail. You don't want it to not work. And there's no reason why it wouldn't work, but you've convinced yourself that it would. You've convinced yourself that it's not good enough, that you're not good enough, that it has to be perfect straight away. You have to walk out there and you've got to be on stage, best version of you straight away. It doesn't always work that way. But don't forget, those of you that know my story as an ex-personal trainer, I would do things I've never done before. I'd be freaking out, but they didn't know that I was. When you get things like, oh, that was a great class, or whatever it was, we couldn't tell that you were nervous because eventually once you just get into the habit, once you just switch on, the nerve can go away sometimes. And we'll listen to interviews with Navy SEALs, right? And they're more nervous before they put their routines into place. They're more nervous before they do the thing. Because once they're doing the thing, it's reaction, it's practice, it's, patterns. They run patterns, they run routines. Before then, they're like, ooh, ooh. But once you get into it, once you get going, the nerves go away, the nerves melt away, and they start to do it. So that is one of the things as well, is you could be building it up, and when you get it out the way, it's underwhelming because, hey, it wasn't as bad as you thought it would be. Very rarely is it as bad as what we think it's going to be. And the longer you spend inside your head, the worse it gets. Because it's unknown. You don't know. So your brain throws out hypotheticals. Your brain throws out everything in the kitchen sink at you. Because it doesn't know. So it's like, well, what could it be? And it just throws things at you. All right. So on the topic of what people think, on the topic of judgment, comparison, all those things, compare your first one to somebody else's first one. Pick me. Compare your first one to my first one. Compare your first whatever it is to my first whatever it is. If you're wanting to know, I can go back and find it and show it to you. Bit embarrassing, but I don't mind it if it means that you go, oh, I can be that. I don't have to be polished, perfect, and just go on. I used to do my videos when I was out for walks. The camera would move. I wouldn't know where I was going. I did a Facebook Live when I was in Gran Canaria. Went out. It was raining, but I thought I went out. Big gust of wind, and I had to keep hold of my phone, and it was a nightmare. So it doesn't have to be amazing. It doesn't have to be perfect because there's no such thing. And just before I finish, remember that everyone is going to have an opinion. Everyone will. I will. Tom, Dick, and Harry down the road will. Marie, Mary, and Doris will. Not everyone's going to like your stuff. Not everyone likes my stuff. I've got people comment saying that was awful, or I have messages saying that it's not very good. Didn't like it, didn't agree. Everyone has people that you disagree with. Everyone has haters, right? In inverted commas. And that's part of it. You're not going to please everyone. One of the things that you've got to understand is that is okay. And you focus on the people that you can help. You focus on the people that do like your stuff, that do like you, do like your message, do like how you come across. But you won't find those people if you stay hidden. You won't find those people unless you do it. Now, there's a lot of speakers out there that say, as long as my talk helps one person, then I'm happy. Because there's so few that do anything with the advice. There's so few that actually do something after hearing them speak. So you've got to balance everything. It is a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. It is a balancing act. It is a case of you've got to care just enough to do a good job, do the best that you can, but then not care enough to really attach yourself to whether you did do a good job. So you do what you can. Once you've done it, you've carried it out, you've done the thing, what happens then is completely out of your control. What happens then is completely and utterly nothing to do with you. You can't change it. You can't change people's opinions of you. You can start to get the ball rolling, and some people can change their minds about you, but in that moment, they'll like it or they won't, and you don't have a lot of control over that. So a big part of this is also letting go of your need to control the outcome. You can control your part, do your best. But after that, it stops. There's a wall. And you can't make people like you. You can't make people agree. You can't force people not to be offended or force people not to disagree. You can't do it. It's impossible. You might say something and it's like, oh, I didn't really mean it in that way. And then you've got to explain it, and that's okay. That's part of discussion. Then they might go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I completely agree with that. Now I've sort of got a bit clearer on it myself. That is part of it. That's part of what it is. And I'm in a position whereby I speak so much, I say so much, I'm on calls, I do podcasts, I write stuff. I'm never going to get it right. I'm never going to be right all the time. I might have to apologize for a few things. I might have to say I didn't mean it in that way. I might have to say it was in the moment, spare of the moment thing, and I didn't actually mean to say it in that way. I apologize. Then you move on. Then you move forwards. Everyone is happy. But that didn't, if you think about that before you do it, it can stop you from doing it. It can stop you from actually taking the steps if you worry about the outcome before you've actually done the thing. All right, so that's what I want to leave you with. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Spaces are open for message to millions. It's for people that want to impact lives, impact 1 million people, impact loads of lives, impact the world within 6 months. Confidently impact lives within 6 months. If you want access to it, I can send you all the information, including the price, the bits of details, what you get for it, but the outcome of it is to impact lives confidently within 6 months. If you want extra information about it, I can send it over. We can discuss it. If you have questions, we can talk about those as well. Nothing, I'm not going to hold anything back. Questions, ask me, want to sign up, I can give you the sign up details as well. Have an amazing day. Hopefully you have enjoyed it, and I look forward to chatting to you all again on the next video.